another. This is going to reach the Supreme Court probably before the end of this year.
We can all see the tumbleweed going down the road because it's all novel in the wild, wild west of the law right now, which is, again, a good reason not to have these cases be a dime a dozen. But when you hear this and the different arguments, how do you see it?
I agree with a lot of what Marshall said, which is fundamentally this will go to the Supreme Court. And the reason state courts are struggling is they're being asked to do something very difficult. And for a state trial court to weigh in on the role of the 14th Amendment in this essentially novel since the Civil War situation, that's a big ask for a state court judge. They're doing their best, but everybody knows where this is going. This is going to the Supreme Court and going there relatively quickly. And I think to echo what Representative Raskin said, these are hard questions. The Constitution, by design, puts some issues beyond the ability of voters. That's the purpose of the Constitution. If we want to maintain our republic, if we want to keep this system going, there are questions that, by design, are out of voters' hands, and this may be one of them.
You know, a lot of this is relying on the January 6th testimony and what was presented. You obviously were a big part of that, Marcus. The fact that that was used, there were questions, frankly, in the public eye about whether there had been a sufficient enough case made to figure out if Donald Trump himself had engaged in an insurrection or had directed someone to do so. Did they make their case? Would that be enough, you think, from what you've presented in January 6th committee?
The big thing that stood out to me is no one's really challenging the facts from our report. They might be challenging the lack of minority staff or that we're former prosecutors that were on the team, but no one's really challenging our findings per se.
Well, Trump's team is. They don't like your findings.
They don't like our findings, but they're also not actually supporting it or supporting their arguments by showing facts to the contrary. And the through line, as trial attorneys, we know this. You want your through line from opening to go through closing, and this call to action has been a through line that's been consistent during our January 6th committee investigation, and we saw it again during this Colorado hearing. And look, I think the perfect illustration is Graydon Young, right, who actually said in trial during the Oath Keeper trial that he was influenced by the big lie and that he viewed the attack on the Capitol as like the French Revolution, like his attack on the Bastille. And that is an illustration of an insurrection. And I thought that the Colorado team did a great job of continuing that narrative and that argument to show that it was an insurrection.
Well, one way to get to the Supreme Court, as we know, if there's disagreement between different circuits, obviously, and other entities. And if, say, Colorado were to rule to say to remove him from the ballot, and you've got Minnesota and Michigan, albeit for different procedural reasons, saying no, he gets to stay on the ballot. The Supreme Court might take this up. They likely will look at this. What's the outcome, though?
That's an interesting question. I think the Supreme Court has shown that it cares about institutions here. So I don't think this is obvious. Even though the Supreme Court obviously is dominated by Republican appointees, I do think there are numerous Republican appointees who are worried about the stability of our institutions right now. So I don't know, but they will decide. They will be the ones, I think, ultimately who will decide this question.
You've been following this so closely. What is your prediction?
Oh,
I know
Laura.
It's a hard one. Well, how about this?
Laura.
I know reporters. I know, I get it.
Look,
how about this? How do you think it's leaning?
I think that if it's going to win anywhere, if the challengers who want Trump off the ballot are going to win anywhere, it wasn't going to be Minnesota, it wasn't going to be Michigan, it could be Colorado. And the fact that it even got this far to a trial with witnesses and evidence and all the findings from Marcus's report presented one by one, I think that's a signal of at least where this may be going. For now.
For now. Oh, see, he added the for now. That's a reporter. I love it so much, Marshall Cohen. Thank you so much. Rebecca and Marcus, also stick around, please. We also have some breaking news from